If you're making tables out of pine, you gotta stop.
I feel like pine has its place. Definitely a product that you can use for work tables. Probably wouldn't use it to build fine furniture.
I wouldn't build dining tables out of this, but shop tables or smaller experimental projects, I think pine is okay. Let's go through the rest of these and we'll talk about when and where we would use them. Let's talk about olive wood. Where would you use olive wood?
I would use olive wood on a smaller scale project probably. Like you could build a small coffee table or some other smaller project out of olive wood. It's a beautiful species, got great grain pattern. It's a little bit more expensive, so probably have to keep that in mind. It's a harder wood. Your ability to sand and not get swirl marks and things with it make it great for charcuterie boards and some of those things, some of the higher end, smaller projects. But I don't know that I would build my dining table out of olive per se.
Olive trees don't grow that big, so to find lengths that are, say, more than 6 or 8 foot is very difficult. Smaller projects, serving boards, no dining tables. It's also difficult to work with, so maybe not for beginners. Let's talk about walnut. Where and when would you use walnut?
Walnut is a great species. It's probably the most popular species that we use in our shop. A little bit more pricey. It's on the higher end from an expense standpoint, but it's very easy to work with. From a hardness perspective, you could build a dining table out of it and not have to worry about your kids scratching it and dinging it up. That rich brown color allows you to make some really nice projects out of it. So at least right now, I would say that that's probably the most popular species.
Sometimes it's rustic, sometimes it's clean. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's also easy on tools and easy for beginners. So great beginner wood for small projects and large, very versatile, highly recommend.
You can use that in a dimensional perspective or with live edge with success with both. Maple.
Where would you use that?
Maple is a great all-around species. It's nice because it's going to be domestic to almost all of our customers. They're going to be able to find maple locally. It grows pretty much from Mexico all the way to the middle of Canada. It's very accessible. From a hardness perspective, it's a nice hard species that you'd be able to use for dining tables. It grows nice and big. Cutting boards, small projects as well.
If you're putting a natural finish on, it works great. But if you want to add a color like a Rubio Monaco charcoal or Castle Brown, it just doesn't take color the way, say, an ash or an oak would. It almost ends up kind of blotchy and it just doesn't take that color the same way that you'd want it to. But if you get spalted, ambrosia, curly, bird's eye, you don't really want to color that up.
No.
You want to keep that natural, finish it with, say, a Rubio Monaco pure, keep it looking good.
White oak. What would you use white oak for?
I think dining tables all day, coffee tables, fine furniture. A lot of interior designers love white oak right now. Wouldn't necessarily go building a cutting board out of it. You can. In the furniture world, this is perfect.
Some of the characteristics that are maybe a little bit challenging to deal with is the different pores, but it's relatively easy to work with.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's as difficult as some exotic species. Takes color nice, just like ash, which is our next one.
Absolutely. Now, would you call this poor man's oak or would you just call it ash?
I would just call it ash. The ash is cheaper than white oak, takes color very similarly. It's a little more yellow if you finish it naturally. A lot of people steer away from it for that reason. It almost looks like pine when it's finished. Good for furniture, especially if you wanted to finish something in like a black. This would take it perfectly. Small projects, big projects, beginner, pro, I think it kind of checks all the boxes, similar to a walnut and even a white oak.
Ash gets like my endorsement for the best beginner hardwood to use. Not super expensive, but you get the experience of working with a hardwood and it's pretty user friendly as well. It would probably get my endorsement as the first hardwood that I would use.
Purple heart. Where would you use purple heart? Or let's throw in like Wenge, Padauk, let's throw in some other exotics. Where would you use these and why?
From a usability standpoint, an exotic species really kind of tells a story. So you can see the grain pattern, you can see this piece of canary wood here on the table as well. You can kind of see some of the character in it. You're gonna buy those pieces specifically because of the way that it looks and the story behind it. So I would use that as an accent.
Accents. They're sometimes a little harder to work with if you're, say, a beginner, a little harder on the tools.
Some of these pieces are $20, $30, $50 a board foot. I wouldn't build the
tough
desk.
to sell a
it
desk
is.
that's going to be thousands and thousands of dollars in just material alone. A nice way to add some color to your project. Nice to have a few boards in the shop with these just so you can include them in the odd project.
Those kind of exotic stories that go along with those pieces make them a little bit easier to sell sometimes.
Finally got my Cocobolo desk.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.